Childhood autism rates massively increase when pregnant mothers are exposed to microplastics, of all things. This study is so new, it literally just came out a few hours ago. It doesn't even have a cool image or anything. There's just some generic plastics here. And it is an actual scientific journal published peer-reviewed study coming out of Australia. And it indicates that higher levels of bisphenol A, or BPA, which is an extremely common type of plastic used in food packaging, were detected in urine samples taken from women pregnant with boys that were later found to have autism. And using an analysis of 2 small studies in people, along with studies of cells in additional lab, Florey, which is the university running this, researchers identified the biological molecular mechanism underlying this association. And they give us kind of a summary down below. You can see this is the Florey Institute, the Murdoch Children's Research University of Melbourne, Hudson, a bunch of different places, all the people that funded it. I'm not going to get into that. We are going to get to the juice here. Basically, it says exposure to plastic chemicals during pregnancy has already been shown in some studies to be associated with subsequent autism in our offspring. And in this particular study, the link between BPA presence and autism was particularly evident in the top fifth of boys with vulnerability to the endocrine disrupting properties of this chemical. And for mothers that had elevated levels of BPA in their urine, which is going to be microplastics, they were 3.5 times more likely to have, their children were 3.5 times more likely to have autism symptoms by age 2, and 6 times more likely to have autism diagnosis by age 11. That is, we're getting close to an order of magnitude more likely, and they're really focusing in on these BPA levels associated with epigenetic changes. So a lot of people in modern society are trying to figure out why all of a sudden we have more autistic children. And by the way, if you are autistic and watching this, I in no way mean to insult or degrade you. We're doing this from a scientific standpoint, but everything has been blamed. This chemical, that chemical, this food, all sorts of medicines and treatments. But if this is true, the culprit is not sort of what we eat, but what we eat is packaged in, which would be plastic. In the exact same time frame that autism rates have skyrocketed, there's been a tremendous explosion in plastic and packaged foods and prepared foods and long stored food and that kind of thing. I think mothers are just eating more plastic than they ever realized, which is increasing autism rates in the general population. The CEO of Reddit has been hinting that in the near future, some subreddits could be paywalled, meaning you could have to pay to use Reddit. And all I have to say about that is, me pay to use Reddit? You must be out of your mind. But that is not all of the bad news that we have here. Basically, Reddit CEO Steve Huffman has hinted that future subreddits could become paywalled as the company seeks to devise new sources of income. Reddit is currently and has been for a very long time bleeding money. It is not a profitable website. To the best of my knowledge, it never has been. And Reddit is currently on a cash drive. Right now, it's testing AI-powered search results. It's decided to close its API and force people to pay for it. It's been shutting down third-party apps to get people on the main Reddit website or on the main Reddit app where they can most heavily monetize. And they're talking about AI search generating ad revenue. We already know that bots have been scraping Reddit since like 5 years ago, but this is the wild one. The CEO of Reddit has suggested the company might experiment with paywalled subreddits as it looks to monetize new features. Quote, I think the existing altruistic free version of Reddit will continue to exist and grow and thrive in just the way that it has. But we will unlock the door for these new cases, new types of subreddits that can be built that may have exclusive content or private areas. It's literally just like Twitter Premium or like Patreon or any of these kind of sites where you have to pay to get through a paywall to go through. And honestly, that's just not the Reddit that I enjoy. I don't want to have to pay for a private newsletter. I don't want to pay to be part of a subreddit like it's a Patreon. There's no paid content that Reddit could offer me that I would fork over my hard-earned American dollars for. As a matter of fact, I'm such a boomer, I still use old Reddit. I go to old.reddit.com so that I get less images, less scrolling, more text. I can more easily parse and avoid misinformation. Same thing on mobile. I have pretty much everything disabled, so it's just text only on mobile. And that's all I want. I don't want to pay to get on a subreddit that probably already has ads and forces me to use a scrolling app. We mostly cover science and tech here, but this is an opinion piece that really kind of hits home for me. In case you haven't heard, Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. has decided to shut down Cartoon Network, both just Cartoon Network in general and all of its content and ongoing productions, and even decided to scrub the Cartoon Network website in order to save cost. And in this case, that erases years of history, a lot of web-only and flash-only episodes or minisodes or webisodes of some of your favorite shows, and it's all part of cost-cutting maneuvers on the part of Warner Brothers because their stock is cratering, and it's cratering because they're losing an outrageous amount of money. They lost the rights to its lucrative NBA packages, they overvalued their advertising, they had $2.1 billion in write-down charges, and a wave of layoffs to bring the one-time hit to $11 billion negative for overvaluing their products and letting the NBA run away. But don't worry, the CEO is still getting a huge pay raise, $50 million for making the company crater, killing Cartoon Network. And even if you go to cartoonnetwork.com, it just redirects you to try to sign up for HBO Max, which is sort of the sole repository of all of the content now. And this is really sad for me. I grew up on Cartoon Network. I loved and enjoyed a lot of the shows that you can actually even see here. And I also really enjoyed Adult Swim. And I had this interesting thought the other night that if Adult Swim survives for one more decade, then the spinoff, Adult Swim, will have lived longer than Cartoon Network, which is kind of wild to me. And I just feel really sad that Warner Brothers is sort of shedding its cartoon past. There was a John Cena versus Wile E. Coyote or versus Acme. Acme versus Wile E. Coyote starring John Cena. The company just seems to be ashamed that it ever did animation. And I always thought it did great animation, but they're just destroying everything. I hate it, man. Bad times. We're in the bad timeline. I do love me some breakthroughs in solar technology, so today I want to share with you a breakthrough in flexible solar panels that are so thin they can be printed on any surface, even backpacks. Honestly, backpacks are kind of a thick surface for them because these things are just 1 micron thick, and a micron is thinner than a human hair. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down to some info here. Yes, it's about 100 times thinner than a human hair and can generate solar electricity just as efficiently as traditional silicon solar panel models, which is insane. But unlike the rigid slabs, this material can coat any surface such as cars, clothing, buildings, and even mobile devices, and it's relatively flexible as well. So scientists used a pioneering technique where they can stack multiple light-absorbing layers into a single solar cell, and they call it a multi-junction approach, which allows the material to harness a broader range of the light spectrum, generating more power from the same amount of sunlight. They're hitting about 27% efficiency, which is not the top for solar panels by far, but it is very good. And the scientists later went on to say, "We believe that over time, this approach could enable the photovoltaic devices to achieve far greater efficiencies exceeding 45%, which would be outrageous for panels." You can see the scientists sort of testing these here. I think this is a very cool technology. We've covered similar things like this before in the past, but the more green energy we use, the better for the whole planet, right? And having solar panels, they don't have to be big 100-pound bricks that are set outside and rotate with the sun, to just be a thin, flexible material like, I don't know, I just grabbed this little little material here. You could just bend and kind of stick it to almost anything. That seems like it would be a huge improvement over our current system.